What happens when the most ruthless alpha alive discovers that the one creature destined to tame his corruption is the helpless Omega he destroyed years ago, and her touch is the only thing preventing him from slaughtering his entire kingdom? They called him the Wicked King. They called her broken, useless, and expendable. But when her scent hit him like a lightning strike in his own throne room, every law of nature shattered, and so did his control. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Now let's get to the story. The iron shackles bit into Ilyra Thorne's wrists as the guards dragged her across the blood-stained stones of Avelen's capital square. Her bare feet left smears of dirt and blood with each stumbling step, but she forced herself to keep moving. Collapsing now would only earn another kick to the ribs, and she'd already taken 3 since dawn. Omega trash, one of the guards muttered, jerking her chain hard enough to make her gasp. Should have left you to rot in the border slums. Ilyra kept her eyes down, her matted brown hair falling forward to hide her face. She'd learned long ago that looking directly at alphas only invited violence. In Avelen, your designation determined everything. Alphas ruled through strength or fear. Betas obeyed and survived. And Omegas? Omegas served until they broke. She'd been broken for most of her 22 years. After her parents died in King Draven's purge of the Outer Territories, she'd survived on kitchen scraps and the charity of those too kind for their own good. Other Omegas pitied her. Betas ignored her. And Alphas, well, Alphas saw her as less than human. A body to exploit. A voice to silence. But today would be different. Today her luck had finally, catastrophically run out. The royal trials were beginning in the Obsidian Citadel, the fortress where King Draven Varyn, the wicked Alpha King himself, held court. For 1 week each year, criminals and slaves were brought before the throne for judgment. Most never left alive. The kingdom whispered that the king's wolf was corrupted, poisoned by blood magic and war, and that he killed for sport as much as justice. Ilyra touched the fresh brand on her forearm through her torn sleeve. She'd been accused of defying her taskmaster, a wealthy merchant who tried to force himself on her in the storage cellar. When she'd fought back, he'd called her feral, dangerous, in need of the king's discipline. The truth was simpler and more damning. She'd somehow thrown him across the room with strength no Omega should possess. Strange how her body had always betrayed her designation. Injuries healed faster than they should. Fevers broke overnight. Once when a feral wolf had cornered her in the forest, she touched its muzzle and felt something pass between them, a warmth, a whisper, and the beast had simply calmed. Laid down at her feet like a lamb. She'd never told anyone. Gifts like that got Omegas killed for witchcraft. Move faster, slag. The guard shoved her forward as they approached the citadel gates. The massive structure rose before her like a monument to suffering, black iron and darker stone, impossibly vast, impossibly cold. Alpha sentries lined the entrance, their eyes tracking every prisoner in the chain gang. When Ilyra stumbled past, one of them actually sneered. Omega, he announced, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Omega entering the throne room. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Ilyra felt the weight of 100 stares, betas whispering behind their hands, alphas curling their lips in disgust, even other Omegas looking away in shame, as if her presence might contaminate them. She pulled her threadbare cloak tighter and kept walking. The throne room was worse. Vast and suffocating, lit by torches that cast more shadow than light. The air tasted like metal and smoke, thick with the scent of power and old blood. At the far end of the chamber, elevated on a dais of black stone, sat the throne itself, a brutal construction of iron and bone that seemed to drink the light around it. And on that throne sat the Wicked King. Ilyra had never seen him before. Few Omegas survived an audience with Draven Varyn. But even from across the room, she could feel him, a presence that pressed against her chest like a physical weight. Dark hair. Scarred face. Eyes the color of a winter storm, cold and distant and utterly devoid of mercy. He was enormous, easily a head taller than his guards, his shoulders broad enough to block out the firelight behind him. Scars crisscrossed his exposed forearms, and his hands, resting on the throne's arms, were stained dark, as if blood had seeped into his very skin. He didn't look at her. Not yet. Ilyra Thorne, the magistrate read from a scroll, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Omega. Accused of assault against her lawful master. Accused of defiance. Accused of witchcraft, her taskmaster interrupted, stepping forward from the crowd. His face was still bruised from where she'd thrown him. She used unnatural strength, Your Majesty. Omega strength. It's a corruption of the natural order. Murmurs rippled through the court. Ilyra's heart hammered against her ribs. Is this true? The king's voice cut through the noise like a blade, low, rough, edged with something that might have been boredom or bloodlust. She couldn't tell. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Answer your king, Omega. A guard struck her between the shoulder blades, driving her to her knees. The impact sent a shock of pain through her body, but even as she gasped, she felt it, that strange, impossible warmth flooding through her limbs. The ache in her ribs fading. The cuts on her feet closing. Healing. Always healing. Her voice cracked. She forced herself to speak louder. I defended myself. That's all. He tried to. She lies, her taskmaster spat. Omegas don't have the strength to harm alphas. Unless they're corrupted. The king finally moved. He rose from his throne slowly, deliberately, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Even the torches flickered lower, as if the flames themselves feared him. He descended the dais steps, each footfall echoing like a death knell. His expression remained unreadable, cold, carved from stone, but something in his posture had changed. Tension coiled through his frame like a wolf preparing to strike. Ilyra kept her head down, every instinct screaming at her to run, to disappear, to become invisible. But the chains held her in place. The king stopped 3 paces away. And then he inhaled. The reaction was instant and terrifying. His entire body went rigid. His hands curled into fists. A low, dangerous sound rumbled from his chest, not quite a growl, not quite a snarl, but something primal and raw that made every wolf in the room take an involuntary step back. Ilyra's head snapped up without thinking. Their eyes met. His storm-gray gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that stole the breath from her lungs. For one impossible moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, predator and prey, king and prisoner, alpha and omega. But there was something else. Something neither of them understood. His nostrils flared. His jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. And then, barely audible beneath the sound of her own racing heartbeat, she heard him whisper a single word. Honeysuckle. The air in the throne room grew impossibly thick. Ilyra felt it too, a pull, a thread of recognition that made no sense. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The scent of rain and winter storm wrapped around her, foreign and familiar all at once. The king's hand shot out and grabbed her chin, forcing her face upward. His grip was iron, but his fingers trembled ever so slightly. What are you? He demanded, his voice barely controlled. Before she could answer, something inside him seemed to crack. A wave of power erupted from his body, dark, suffocating, wrong. Shadows bled from his skin like smoke. His eyes flashed with twin points of crimson light. The torches around the room exploded into wild flame, and several courtiers screamed. The corruption. The curse everyone whispered about. It was real. And it was waking up. The king released her and staggered back, one hand pressed to his chest as if trying to hold something inside. His breathing came in ragged gasps. His wolf, whatever twisted, broken thing lived inside him, was trying to claw its way out. Your Majesty. One of his generals rushed forward. Should we get out? The king's voice was barely human now, layered with a guttural snarl. All of you. Now. The court fled. Guards, magistrates, nobles, everyone scattered like leaves before a storm. Ilyra tried to crawl backward, chains scraping across stone, but the king's eyes found her again. Not you. 2 words. A command and a death sentence. The doors slammed shut. Silence fell, broken only by the king's labored breathing and the crackle of wild flames. Ilyra waited for the killing blow. For claws or teeth or the cold edge of a blade. Instead, the king sank to one knee in front of her. Up close, she could see the scars that covered him. The exhaustion etched into every line of his face. The way his hands shook as he fought for control. Who are you? He asked again, quieter this time. Almost desperate. No one, Ilyra whispered. I'm no one. Liar. His hand reached toward her face again, but this time he stopped just short of touching her. Your scent, it's... He didn't finish. Couldn't finish. Because in that moment, Ilyra made a mistake. She reached up and placed her palm against his chest. The effect was instantaneous. The shadows around him recoiled. The crimson light in his eyes flickered and dimmed. And somewhere deep inside him, she felt it, a howl of recognition, of longing, of something that had been caged for so long it had forgotten what freedom tasted like. His wolf. And it wasn't snarling. It was weeping. The king's eyes widened in shock. What did you? But Ilyra couldn't answer. The moment her skin touched his, something opened between them, a door, a bridge, a bond she didn't have words for. She saw flashes of his life. Blood-soaked battlefields. A father's cruel smile. A mother's screams. Magic twisting through his veins like poison. Years of isolation. Decades of darkness. And beneath it all, a wolf trapped between life and death, howling for release. The visions shattered as the king jerked away from her touch, breathing hard. Impossible, he whispered. For several heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then slowly, the king rose to his feet. His expression had shifted into something unreadable, calculation, suspicion, and something that might have been fear. You're not to be executed, he said finally, his voice carefully controlled. You'll serve in the royal wing. Under my direct supervision. Ilyra stared at him. What? Do you question your king, Omega? I know. No, your majesty. He turned away from her, but not before she caught the tremor in his hands. You'll be given quarters. Food. Whatever you need. He paused at the base of the dais. But you will not leave the citadel. You will not speak of what happened here. And you will not, under any circumstances, touch me again. The last words came out strained, as if they cost him something to say. Guards. His voice echoed through the empty throne room. The doors opened immediately. 2 beta guards entered, carefully avoiding their king's gaze. Take the Omega to the West Tower. See that she's cleaned and fed. His back was still to her. And someone fetch the healers. I want her examined. Yes, your majesty. As the guards lifted Ilyra to her feet and began leading her away, she risked one glance back. The wicked king stood alone before his throne of iron and bone, shadows still writhing at the edges of his form, his head bowed as if in prayer or defeat. And for just a moment, so brief she might have imagined it, she heard a voice in her mind that wasn't her own. Mine. The word followed her all the way to her new prison. And deep in her chest, something answered back. Yours. Neither of them understood what it meant. Not yet. But in the blood-ruled kingdom of Avelen, where Omegas served and Alphas ruled through fear, a single breath of honeysuckle and rain had just shattered every law the wicked king had ever known. And there was no going back. The meditation chamber was built for containment, not comfort. Draven Varyn knelt on bare stone in the heart of the citadel's deepest tower, surrounded by walls etched with binding runes his ancestors had carved centuries ago. Iron chains hung from the ceiling, thick as a man's wrist, their ends bolted into the floor. He'd broken through them twice before. The new ones were reinforced with blood magic. Just in case. He closed his eyes and tried to breathe through the pressure building in his chest. It always started this way, a tightness beneath his sternum, a heat that had nothing to do with temperature. Then came the shadows. They leaked from his skin like smoke from a dying fire, curling around his arms in dark tendrils that writhed with their own hunger. He watched them spread across the stone floor, killing the moss that grew in the cracks. Everything his darkness touched withered and died. Focus, he commanded himself. Contain it. But containment was becoming harder. Ever since the Omega girl had touched him 3 days ago, his wolf had been restless. No, restless was too mild a word. His wolf was awake in a way it hadn't been in years, clawing at the cage of his ribs, howling for something he couldn't name. Honeysuckle and rain. The scent memory alone made his hands curl into fists. Your Majesty. A voice echoed down the tower stairs. May I enter? Draven forced the shadows back beneath his skin with brutal efficiency. The effort left him shaking. Come. General Alaric Blackwater descended into the chamber with the careful steps of a man who'd seen his king lose control before. He was a decade older than Draven, his dark hair streaked with silver, his face marked by a lifetime of war. Loyal to the bone. Ambitious to the marrow. You've been down here for 16 hours, Alaric said, his tone carefully neutral. The council is asking questions. Let them ask. They're concerned about the Omega. Draven's eyes snapped open. What about her? She's been assigned to the healing wards as you commanded. Alaric moved closer, his boots careful to avoid the dead patches on the floor. The physicians report, unusual results. Explain. Soldiers with wounds that should take weeks to heal are walking within days. Burns that should scar are leaving clean skin. At first they attributed it to the quality of care, but, Alaric paused. They've started watching her more closely. She doesn't use traditional methods. She just touches them. The pressure in Draven's chest intensified. And the wounds close faster. Pain subsides. Some of the men are calling it a miracle. Alaric's expression darkened. Others are calling it witchcraft. Which do you believe? I believe in what I can see, Your Majesty. And what I see is an Omega with a gift that shouldn't exist, affecting wolves in ways that violate natural law. He met Draven's gaze directly. I also believe you spared her life for a reason you haven't shared with your council. Draven rose to his feet slowly. At his full height, he towered over most men, and he used that advantage now. Are you questioning my judgment, General? I'm questioning your safety. Alaric didn't flinch. You know what the curse does. You know what happened to your father when he tried to take a mate. The words landed like a blade between his ribs. King Torvald the Cruel. The previous wicked king. A man who'd loved his queen so fiercely that when the curse finally consumed him, he'd torn her apart with his own claws while their court watched in horror. Draven had been 12 years old. He still heard her screams in his sleep. I'm not my father, he said quietly. No. Alaric's voice softened slightly. You're stronger. You've controlled the curse longer. But that Omega, the way you reacted to her scent, the way the shadows surged, he shook his head. If she's your mate. She's not. The denial came too fast, too sharp. Alaric's expression said he didn't believe it. The curse was created to prevent your bloodline from bonding. Your great-grandfather tried to bind the wolves of light and shadow into a single vessel, thinking it would make him invincible. Instead, it made him monstrous. Every generation since has carried that corruption. I'm aware of my family history. Then you know that the closer you get to a mate bond, the stronger the curse becomes. It feeds on connection, on love. Alaric took a step forward. Your father lasted 3 months after he accepted the bond. You've already shown signs of instability after 3 days near that girl. Draven turned away, his jaw tight. I haven't accepted anything. Your wolf has. The words hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Because Alaric was right. Draven could deny it with his mind, could bury it beneath logic and duty and fear, but his wolf knew the truth. Had known at the moment her scent hit him like lightning in the throne room. Mine. Mate. Mine. What would you have me do? Draven asked, his voice rough. Kill her. Send her away. Tonight. To the outer territories where her scent can't reach you. Alaric's tone was almost gentle. You've protected this kingdom for 20 years by refusing to bond. Don't throw that away for an Omega who might not even survive what you are. Draven's hands clenched at his sides. The shadows leaked from his fingertips again, spreading across the floor in dark pools. I'll consider your counsel, he said finally. Leave me. Your Majesty. Leave. Alaric bowed stiffly and climbed the stairs without another word. The moment he was gone, Draven slammed his fist into the stone wall hard enough to crack it. Pain flared up his arm, sharp and grounding, but it did nothing to quiet the howling in his chest. His wolf wanted out. Wanted her. And the curse was waking up to claim them both. Ilyra had never seen so much blood in her life. The healing ward was chaos, soldiers from a skirmish at the northern border, their bodies torn by claws and teeth. Feral wolves had attacked a supply convoy. The survivors were barely holding on. You Omega. The head physician, a severe beta woman named Maris, thrust a bowl of water into her hands. Clean the wounds on bed 7. Don't waste the bandages, he probably won't survive the night anyway. Ilyra nodded and hurried to the indicated cot. The soldier was young, maybe 20, his face grey with blood loss. 3 deep gashes ran from his shoulder to his hip, the flesh torn and angry. He was unconscious, his breathing shallow. She'd seen wounds like this before. In the slums, injuries this severe meant death within hours. But here, they at least tried. Ilyra dipped a cloth in the water and began gently cleaning the blood away. The soldier didn't stir. As she worked, she felt that familiar warmth building in her palms, the strange heat that had always frightened her. Don't, she told herself. They're already calling you a witch. But her hands had a will of their own. The warmth spread from her palms into the soldier's torn flesh. She watched, heart hammering, as the deepest gash began to knit itself together. Not instantly, it would take hours still, but faster. Impossibly faster. What are you doing? Ilyra jerked back to find Maris standing over her, eyes narrowed. I was just cleaning. Maris grabbed the soldier's shoulder and examined the wound. Her expression shifted from suspicion to shock. This was down to the bone an hour ago. I don't know what. Don't lie to me, girl. Maris leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I've been a healer for 30 years. I know what natural recovery looks like. This isn't it. Ilyra's throat tightened. Please. I'm just doing what you asked. The other physicians have been watching you. Every patient you touch improves faster than they should. Maris's eyes searched her face. What are you? I'm nobody. I'm just... A commotion at the ward entrance cut her off. Feral wolf, someone shouted. It followed the wounded. Get back. Chaos erupted. A massive grey wolf burst through the doorway, foam flecking its muzzle, eyes rolled back to show the whites. It was trapped in bloodlust, unable to shift back to human form, unable to recognize friend from foe. Soldiers scrambled for weapons. Physicians screamed and dove for cover. The wolf's crazed gaze locked onto the nearest target, a young orderly frozen in fear near the supply table. Ilyra didn't think. She threw herself between them. No. Maris screamed. Get back. But Ilyra was already reaching out, her hand extended toward the snarling beast. The wolf lunged, and Ilyra's palm met its muzzle. The effect was instantaneous. Warmth flooded from her skin into the creature's body like water breaking a dam. The wolf's snarl cut off mid-breath. Its wild eyes cleared. The foam stopped frothing. And slowly, impossibly, it sank to the floor at her feet. Calm. Docile. Healed. The entire ward went silent. Ilyra kept her hand on the wolf's head, feeling its rapid heartbeat slow beneath her touch. She could sense the madness leaving its mind like poison being drawn from a wound. Sweet goddess, someone whispered. She's one of them. A moon chosen. Impossible. They're all dead. Then what do you call that? Ilyra looked up to find every eye in the room fixed on her. Fear. Awe. Suspicion. And standing in the doorway, half hidden in shadow, was the king. How long had he been there? His storm-grey eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. He didn't speak. Didn't move. Just watched as she knelt beside the feral wolf that now rested peacefully under her touch. Then, without a word, he turned and disappeared into the corridor. But not before she saw it, the flash of recognition in his eyes. Of understanding. He knew what she was. They came for her at midnight. Not to execute her, she'd expected that. Instead, 2 silent guards escorted her to a different tower, a different chamber. This one was smaller, warmer, with a fire burning in the hearth and a bed that actually had blankets. You're to stay here, one guard said gruffly. King's orders. No one enters without his permission. Then they locked the door from the outside. Ilyra sank onto the bed, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. Her hands still tingled from touching the feral wolf. She could still feel its heartbeat, its gratitude, its peace. What was she? The fire crackled softly. Despite everything, her eyelids grew heavy. She didn't remember falling asleep. The dream came like a whisper. Ilyra opened her eyes to find herself standing in a forest bathed in silver moonlight. Ancient trees surrounded her, their branches hung with glowing moss. The air smelled of earth and rain and something wild. She wasn't alone. Ahead of her, in a clearing ringed by standing stones, a massive black wolf stood waiting. No, not black. Shadow. Its fur seemed to absorb light, writhing with the same dark tendrils she'd seen leaking from the king's skin. Crimson eyes watched her with an intelligence that was distinctly human. Draven, she thought. His wolf. She should have been terrified. Instead, she took a step forward. The shadow wolf's ears flicked back, uncertain. It was so large, easily twice the size of any normal wolf, its shoulders reaching her chest. Power radiated from it in waves, dark and hungry and wrong. But beneath that darkness, she felt something else. Pain. Loneliness. A howl that had been echoing unanswered for decades. You're hurting, she whispered. The wolf's head lowered, and a sound escaped it, half growl, half whimper. Ilyra moved closer. Slowly. Carefully. I can help, she said softly. If you'll let me. The wolf went very still. And then, impossibly, it sank to its belly and bowed its head. Submission. Trust. Please. Ilyra knelt in the silver grass and reached out with both hands. The moment her palms touched the wolf's massive head, light exploded from her skin. Not harsh, gentle. Warm. Like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The wolf shuddered beneath her touch. The shadows writhing through its fur began to recede, pulling back toward its core. She could feel the curse inside it, ancient magic twisted into chains, binding light and darkness into a single broken vessel. It was killing him. Had been killing him for years. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry this was done to you. The wolf made a sound she'd never heard before, a keening cry of grief and relief tangled together. And then it began to change. The massive form shrank. The shadows condensed. Until it wasn't a wolf kneeling before her anymore. It was a man. Draven knelt in the silver grass, naked and vulnerable, his head still bowed beneath her glowing hands. Scars covered his back and shoulders. His breathing came in ragged gasps. Don't stop, he whispered. Please. Don't stop. So she didn't. She poured everything she had into him, warmth, light, healing. The glow from her hands grew brighter, wrapping around them both like a cocoon. She could feel the curse fighting back, trying to devour her light, but she pushed deeper. Deeper. Until she touched the core of him. And found not a monster, but a king who'd been trapped in darkness for so long he'd forgotten what mercy felt like. You're not wicked, she breathed. You're just in pain. Draven's head lifted. His storm-gray eyes met hers, and for the first time since she'd met him, they weren't cold. They were burning. Who are you? He asked hoarsely. I don't know, she admitted. But I think I'm supposed to help you. His hand rose slowly to cover hers where it rested against his chest. His palm was warm, calloused, trembling. Then we're both doomed, he whispered. But he didn't pull away. And neither did she. The dream shattered as dawn broke. Ilyra woke gasping, her hands still glowing faintly in the morning light. Across the citadel, in his meditation chamber, Draven jolted awake with her scent in his lungs and the ghost of her touch burning on his skin. For the first time in 20 years, his wolf was silent. Not caged. Not raging. Just quiet. And somehow, that terrified him more than any curse ever had. Because silence meant hope. And hope for the wicked king had always been the cruelest poison of all. The dreams didn't stop. Every night for a week, Ilyra found herself in that moonlit forest. And every night, he was waiting. Sometimes he appeared as the wolf, that massive creature of shadow and crimson eyes who would rest its great head in her lap while she sang old lullabies her mother had taught her. Sometimes he came as the man, keeping a careful distance, watching her with an expression she couldn't name. They rarely spoke in these dreams. Words felt unnecessary when she could sense his emotions like currents in deep water, the bone-deep exhaustion, the guilt that sat in his chest like stones, the loneliness that had carved him hollow. And he could feel hers. She knew it by the way his eyes tracked her when she trembled, the way his hands clenched when her fear spiked. This isn't real, she told him on the 5th night, standing beneath a tree whose branches dripped with silver light. It's just dreams. Is it? His voice was rough from disuse. He stood at the edge of the clearing, maintaining the distance he always kept, as if afraid to come closer. Then why can I feel your pulse even when I'm awake? Her hand flew to her throat. What? 82 beats per minute. It spikes when Physician Maris questions you about your gift. Slows when you sleep. Races when, he stopped himself, jaw tight. When what? When you think of me. Heat flooded her cheeks. She wanted to deny it, but the bond between them, whatever this was, made lying impossible. He would feel it. I don't understand any of this, she whispered. Neither do I. For the first time, he took a step toward her. Then another. The shadows that usually writhed around him were quieter in these dreams, subdued by her presence. But I know what you saw tonight. In my memories. She had. The dreams were growing stronger, deeper. Tonight she'd witnessed fragments of his past like shattered glass, a younger Draven, barely 18, standing in a village square surrounded by bodies. His father's voice, you will learn control, or you will learn what it means to be monster. The weight of the crown placed on his head 3 years later, still wet with his father's blood. You were forced to execute them, she said quietly. The rebels who tried to overthrow your father. You didn't want to. Want has nothing to do with what a king must do. His voice was flat, but she felt the spike of shame beneath it. They called for mercy. I gave them death. Just as I've given death to hundreds since. To protect your people. To protect my throne. He was close enough now that she could see the silver scars across his knuckles, the ones that never healed properly. Don't make me noble in your mind, Ilyra. I'm not the hero of this story. Then what are you? He looked at her for a long moment, something raw and aching in his storm-gray eyes. Yours, he said finally. Whether either of us wants it or not. The word hung between them like a blade and a benediction. Ilyra woke with tears on her cheeks and the ghost of his confession echoing in her bones. She wasn't supposed to leave her tower room. But 3 days after the feral wolf incident, a guard came with new orders. The king requested her presence in his private study. Now. Ilyra followed the guard through corridors she'd never seen before, these carved from black stone, lit by torches that burned with blue flame. They climbed higher and higher until they reached a door marked with the same binding runes that covered the meditation chamber. The guard knocked once, then retreated without a word. Enter, came the king's voice from within. The study was smaller than she'd expected, lined with ancient books and maps of territories she didn't recognize. A fire burned low in the hearth. And Draven stood beside the window, his back to her, tension visible in every line of his body. Close the door. She obeyed, her heart hammering. You shouldn't have summoned me, she said quietly. People are already talking. If the council finds out. I don't care what the council thinks. He still didn't turn around. I need you to do something for me. What? Come here. It wasn't a command exactly. More like a plea wrapped in royal authority. Ilyra crossed the room slowly, stopping a few feet behind him. This close, she could see the shadows leaking from his clenched fists, dark tendrils that writhed against the floorboards. It's getting worse, he said, his voice strained. The curse. Ever since the dreams started, my wolf is awake in ways it hasn't been in years. Hungry. Desperate. For what? For you. The admission came out rough. And the more it wants, the stronger the curse becomes. I can feel it eating through the control I've spent 20 years building. She could sense his fear through the bond, sharp and metallic. What do you need from me? She asked. Finally, he turned. The shadows beneath his eyes spoke of sleepless nights. His jaw was tight, his hands trembling despite how still he held himself. I need to feel your pulse, he said. Just for a moment. When I can feel your heartbeat, the wolf quiets. Her breath caught. You want to touch me? No. The word came fast, almost violent. I need to. There's a difference. Dangerous. This was so dangerous. But she could feel his desperation like a physical ache, and despite every warning screaming in her mind, she stepped forward and raised her wrist. Here. Draven stared at her offered wrist like it might burn him. Then slowly, so slowly, he reached out and wrapped his fingers around it. The effect was instantaneous. His eyes fell closed. A shudder ran through his entire body. The shadows leaking from his skin receded, pulling back like a tide. His breathing, which had been coming in sharp gasps, steadied. And Ilyra felt it too, the moment their skin connected, Warmth flooded through the bond between them. Not the healing warmth from her gift. Something else. Something that made her feel safe and terrified all at once. Your pulse is racing, he murmured, his thumb resting against her vein. So is yours. His eyes opened. They were inches apart now, close enough that she could see flecks of blue in his grey irises. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his skin. I could hurt you, he whispered. The curse. Hasn't, she finished. Every time you've touched me, nothing bad has happened. Yet. But he didn't let go. They stood there in the firelight, his fingers wrapped around her wrist, feeling each other's heartbeats through skin and bone and whatever strange magic bound them together. This can't continue, he said finally, though his grip didn't loosen. The closer we get, the more danger you're in. From me. From the court. From... A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Draven released her instantly and stepped back, shadows surging around him like armor. What? The door opened. General Alaric stood in the threshold, his expression carefully blank, but his eyes went immediately to Ilyra. Forgive the intrusion, Your Majesty. The Council has convened an emergency session. They request your immediate presence. On what grounds? They've received information regarding the Omega. Alaric's gaze never left Ilyra's face. Information they claim is critical to the kingdom's safety. Draven's jaw tightened. What information? They wish to present it before the full council, including you, Your Majesty. He paused. And her. The council chamber was a circular room carved from white stone, designed so that all voices carried equally. 12 high-backed chairs ringed the center where 2 smaller seats had been placed, one for the king, one conspicuously empty. For her. Ilyra stood in the doorway, feeling every eye in the room track her entrance. She recognized some faces from the healing wards, Lord Casimir, the Master of Coin, whose son she'd saved from infection. Lady Thorne, the spymaster, whose gaze was sharp as broken glass. And Alaric, standing beside an empty chair with a leather-bound book in his hands. Take your seat, girl, Lady Thorne said coldly. Ilyra sat. Draven remained standing, positioned between her and the council like a barrier. This session was called without my authorization, the king said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Explain. Lord Casimir rose. Your Majesty, we would not have convened without grave cause. General Alaric has discovered information about the Omega that affects the security of this kingdom. Then let him speak. All eyes turned to Alaric. The general stepped forward, the book still in his hands. 3 days ago, I began investigating the girl's origins. Her unusual abilities. The way wounded soldiers heal faster under her care. The incident with the feral wolf. He paused. And her effect on you, Your Majesty. Murmurs rippled through the council. Draven's voice dropped to something dangerous. Careful, General. I went to the Grand Archives. Searched records dating back 5 centuries. Alaric opened the book, revealing yellowed pages covered in ancient script. And I found this. A prophecy recorded by the moon priestesses before your great-grandfather slaughtered their order. The room went deathly silent. Read it, Lady Thorne commanded. Alaric's voice rang clear. When shadow devours light, and the wicked king's reign turns cruel, a daughter of the moon shall rise. Marked with the healer's sigil, blessed with the goddess's touch. She will be his salvation or his doom, for only she can break the curse that binds him, or become the blade that ends his corrupted bloodline forever. The words echoed off the white stone walls. Ilyra felt the blood drain from her face. Show us her mark, Lord Casimir demanded. I don't have, Ilyra started, but Alaric was already moving toward her. The mark of the moon chosen appears when their power is awakened. Usually on the left shoulder blade. He looked at Draven. With your permission, Your Majesty? Draven looked like he wanted to tear Alaric's throat out. But refusing would only confirm the council's suspicions. Do it, he said through clenched teeth. Alaric pulled down the collar of Ilyra's simple dress, just enough to expose her shoulder. And there it was. A mark she'd never seen before, a silver crescent moon surrounded by intricate spirals, glowing faintly against her skin. The healer's sigil. Exactly as described in the prophecy. The council chamber erupted. She's one of them. The Moon Chosen were enemies of the crown. She'll destroy us all. Silence. Draven's command cracked like thunder. But the damage was done. Lady Thorne rose, her voice cold and clear. The prophecy is explicit. She is either salvation or doom. We cannot risk the latter. I move that she be imprisoned until we can determine which. Seconded, Lord Casimir said immediately. This is madness, Draven snarled. She's done nothing but help. She's influenced you, Your Majesty. Alaric's voice was almost gentle. Can you honestly say your judgment isn't compromised? That you haven't felt the pull toward her? Felt your control slipping? The king said nothing. Because they both knew it was true. The curse feeds on connection, Alaric continued. Everyone in this room knows what happened to your father when he tried to bond. If she's your fated mate, if the bond completes, the curse will consume you. And you'll slaughter her just like your father did the queen. Ilyra watched Draven's face go carefully blank. Watched him lock every emotion behind the mask of the wicked king. Put it to a vote, he said quietly. Your Majesty, Alaric began. I said, put it to a vote. Lady Thorne smiled coldly. All in favor of imprisoning the Omega until her threat can be assessed? 11 hands rose. Only Draven abstained. Take her to the dungeons, Lady Thorne commanded. Under guard. No visitors. Guards moved toward Ilyra. She stood on shaking legs, her eyes finding Draven's across the room. Say something, she thought desperately. Fight for me. But he just stood there, shadows writhing around his clenched fists, jaw tight, eyes burning with something that looked like anguish and resignation tangled together. Your Majesty? One of the guards asked uncertainly. For a long moment, Draven said nothing. Then, do as the council commands. The words hit Ilyra like a physical blow. He was letting them take her. Not because he agreed. She could feel his conflict through the bond, rage and fear and desperation. But also something else. Terror. Not of the council. Of himself. He believed the prophecy. Believed that getting closer to her would trigger the curse. That he would become the monster his father had been. So he was choosing to lose her now, before the curse could force him to destroy her later. No, she whispered. Draven, please. But the guards were already pulling her toward the door. And the king turned away, unable to watch. The last thing she saw before they dragged her into the corridor was Alaric's satisfied smile. The dungeons were exactly as she'd imagined. Cold stone, iron bars, darkness thick enough to choke on. They threw her into a cell and locked the door without ceremony. The guards' footsteps echoed away, leaving her alone in the silence. Ilyra sank onto the narrow cot and wrapped her arms around herself. She should be furious. Should be planning escape. But all she could feel was the echo of Draven's heartbeat through the bond, steady and strong and breaking. He hadn't abandoned her. He'd just chosen the wrong kind of protection. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt strange in the dark. Then suddenly, a spike of emotion through the bond. Sharp, violent, wrong. Pain. His pain. Ilyra gasped and pressed her hand to her chest. Through the connection between them, she could feel him falling apart. The curse surging. The shadows eating through his control. Without her touch to calm him, the wolf was taking over. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She reached for the bond, trying to send him comfort, warmth, anything. But the distance was too great. She was too weak. All she could do was feel him suffering. Feel his heartbeat racing faster, until she feared it might burst. And then, cutting through the pain, she felt something else. Resolve. Draven's voice echoed in her mind, distant but clear, I'm coming for you. Prophecy be damned. Somewhere in the citadel above, the wicked king made his choice. Not to save himself, but to save her. Even if it meant becoming the monster everyone feared. 3 weeks had passed since Draven carried her from the dungeons. 3 weeks of fever dreams and silver blood seeping through bandages. 3 weeks of physician Maris shaking his head and whispering words like miraculous and impossible and she shouldn't be alive. But Ilyra was nothing if not stubborn. She woke on the 22nd day to find herself in a room she'd never seen before, circular, with walls of pale stone and windows that overlooked a private garden. Moonflowers bloomed outside, their white petals glowing in the afternoon sun. Not the tower. Not the dungeons. Somewhere safe. You're awake. Ilyra turned her head, too quickly, sparking a wave of dizziness, to find Draven sitting beside her bed. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His hair was disheveled. But the shadows around him were calm, contained, almost peaceful. "How long?" she asked, her voice rough from disuse. 22 days. He reached out, then stopped himself, hand hovering uncertainly. "May I?" She nodded. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, finding her pulse. The same gesture from before, but gentler now. "Reverent. 74 beats per minute," he murmured. "Stronger than yesterday." "You've been counting." "Every day." His thumb traced the delicate skin of her inner wrist. "Every hour. Making sure you were still with me." The bond between them hummed softly, warm and steady. She could feel his relief like sunshine after rain. "Where am I?" "The Sanctuary Tower. Old wing, abandoned for decades. Only Maris and I know you're here." His expression darkened. "The council believes you died in the dungeons. That I executed you myself in my madness. And they believe that? They want to believe it. It's easier than admitting they were wrong." He released her wrist but didn't move away. "Alaric is suspicious. But without proof, he can't act." Ilyra tried to sit up. Her arms shook with the effort, and Draven immediately moved to help her, propping pillows behind her back. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. This is my fault. If I'd fought for you from the beginning." "You did fight for me. You tore apart your own dungeons. After letting them imprison you in the first place." His jaw tightened. "I was a coward, Ilyra. I let fear dictate my choices. Fear of the curse, fear of the prophecy, fear of becoming my father. And you nearly died because of it." She reached out and took his hand. His fingers curled around hers immediately, desperately. "We're both alive," she said simply. "That's what matters." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, feeling each other's heartbeats through the bond. Then the light outside changed. Ilyra frowned, looking toward the window. The afternoon sun had been bright and clear moments ago. Now it was fading, turning strange and dim, as if twilight was falling hours too early. "What?" Draven was already on his feet, moving to the window. And the color drained from his face. "No," he breathed. "It's too soon. It's not supposed to." Ilyra pulled herself out of bed on shaking legs and joined him at the window. The sky was turning red. Not the gentle crimson of sunset. This was deeper, darker, the color of old blood. It spread across the heavens like a stain, swallowing the blue inch by inch. And rising on the eastern horizon, still hours before it should appear, was the moon. Bloated. Enormous. The color of fresh wounds. "The blood moon," Draven said quietly. "It's returning." Within an hour, the entire castle was in chaos. Ilyra watched from her window as guards rushed through the courtyards below. Citizens poured into the streets, pointing at the sky, their voices carrying up in waves of panic. The blood moon only appeared once every century. The last time it rose, Draven's great-grandfather had made his bargain with the dark gods, trading his bloodline's humanity for power. The bargain that had cursed every king since. And now it was back. 30 years early. "It's a sign," Draven said, pacing her room like a caged animal. The shadows around him were agitated, flickering. "The curse is destabilizing. What you did in the dungeons, purging part of it, must have triggered something. Or the goddess is trying to tell us something." He stopped pacing. "What?" "Think about it. The blood moon returns. The prophecy activates. I arrive at your castle." Ilyra touched the mark on her shoulder blade, which had been burning steadily hotter since the sky changed. "This isn't coincidence. It's convergence. Everything coming together at once." "For what purpose?" "To break the curse completely." She met his eyes. "Or destroy us trying." Before Draven could respond, urgent knocking shattered the moment. "Your Majesty." Physician Maris's voice, tight with fear. The council demands your presence. Now. The council chamber was in uproar. Ilyra insisted on accompanying Draven despite his protests. She was still weak, leaning heavily on his arm as they entered, but she refused to hide while the kingdom fractured around them. The reaction to her appearance was immediate. Lord Casimir stumbled backward, his face going pale. Impossible. She's dead. We were told. You were told what you needed to hear to maintain peace, Draven cut in coldly. The Omega lives. Under my protection. Anyone who objects can take it up with me personally. Alaric stood slowly from his seat. His expression was unreadable, but Ilyra could see the calculation behind his eyes. So the rumors were true, the general said quietly. You've bonded with her. Fully. Yes. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Then you've doomed us all, Lady Thorne hissed. The prophecy was clear. The moon chosen would be your salvation or your doom. You've chosen doom. I've chosen her, Draven replied. There's a difference. Is there? Alaric gestured toward the windows, where the blood-red sky pulsed like a living thing. The moment you bonded, the blood moon returned. The curse is spreading, Your Majesty. Our scouts report darkness creeping across the northern territories. Animals going mad. Villagers having nightmares so vivid they can't wake. Ilyra felt Draven's hand tighten on her arm. The curse is reacting to the bond, Alaric continued. Just as we feared. It's trying to consume both of you, and it's taking the kingdom with it. Then we break the curse, Ilyra said, her voice ringing clear despite her weakness. All eyes turned to her. How? Lord Casimir demanded. The wicked kings have tried for generations. There is no breaking it. Because they tried alone. Ilyra looked up at Draven. The prophecy said salvation or doom. Not one or the other, both. The curse can only be broken by unity. Dusk and dawn. Shadow and light. Wolf and... She stopped. The mark on her shoulder blade was burning. And suddenly, she wasn't in the council chamber anymore. Moonlight. Ancient forest. But different from the dreams. This felt real. Ilyra stood in a clearing she recognized, the one where she'd met Draven's wolf so many times. But now a figure waited in the center. A woman made of silver light and starshine, with eyes like the moon and a crown of lunar flowers. The goddess. Moon chosen, the goddess spoke, her voice layered with power. Do you understand what must be done? I. Ilyra swallowed hard. The prophecy. Unity of dusk and dawn. The curse feeds on isolation. On the belief that darkness must exist separate from light. That monsters cannot be redeemed. The goddess moved closer. But you know the truth, don't you? You've seen it in him. He's not a monster, Ilyra whispered. No. He is a man cursed to believe he is one. And you are the key to breaking that curse. The goddess's expression grew solemn. But the price is high, child. To fully purge the darkness, you must give everything. Your power. Your life force. Your very soul will burn as fuel for his redemption. Ilyra's breath caught. I'll die. Yes. And him? Will he survive? If you succeed, the curse will be broken. The wolf will be whole. He will live. The goddess paused. But he will live knowing what you sacrificed for him. Knowing he couldn't save you in return. Can you give him that burden? Ilyra thought of Draven, the way he smiled when he thought no one was watching, the gentleness in his hands despite the claws, the hope she'd seen flickering in his eyes when she'd pushed back the curse. I can, she said, if it means he's free. The goddess inclined her head. Then prepare yourself, moon chosen. The blood moon reaches its apex in 3 days. That is when the curse will be at its weakest, and when the ritual must be performed. What do I need to do? Love him, the goddess said simply. With everything you are. Hold nothing back. And when the time comes, let go. Ilyra gasped, stumbling. Draven caught her before she fell, his arms coming around her. Ilyra? What happened? Your mark, it was glowing. I know how to break the curse, she whispered. The council chamber went silent. Tell me, Draven demanded. So she did. The goddess's message. The ritual. the timeline, and the cost. With every word, she felt Draven's body going rigid against hers. "No," he said when she finished. "Absolutely not. It's the only way. I don't care." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes wild. "I won't let you die for me. I refuse. It's not your choice to make." "The hell it isn't." His voice cracked. "You think I survived 20 years of this curse just to watch you sacrifice yourself? You think I'll just stand there and let you? What's the alternative?" Ilyra challenged. "Let the curse consume you? Let it spread across the kingdom? How many people will die if we do nothing?" Draven's jaw worked, shadows writhing violently around him. Before he could respond, Alaric spoke. "There is another option," the general said quietly. Everyone turned. Alaric's expression was hard, resolved. "Kill the Omega now. Before the blood moon reaches its apex. Sever the bond, let the curse return to its contained state. The king survives. The kingdom survives." "Over my dead body," Draven snarled. "That can be arranged." Alaric's hand moved to his sword. "Your Majesty, you're compromised. The bond has corrupted your judgment. For the good of Avelen, I'm relieving you of command." The council chamber erupted in shouts. "You can't. This is treason. The kingdom must come first." But Alaric wasn't alone. 6 other council members stood with him. More than half. And through the windows, Ilyra could see soldiers gathering in the courtyard below. Hundreds of them. Alaric had been preparing for this moment. "I'm sorry it came to this," the general said, drawing his blade. "But I won't let you destroy everything our ancestors built for a girl you barely know." Draven moved in front of Ilyra, shadows exploding outward like wings. "Then you'll have to go through me." "So be it." Alaric raised his sword. And Ravenspire descended into civil war. The battle was brief and brutal. Draven's wolf exploded forth with devastating force, tearing through Alaric's guards like paper. But he was careful, too careful, not to kill. Even now, even defending his mate, some part of him held back. Because these were his people. His soldiers. And he'd already been called monster enough for one lifetime. Ilyra watched helplessly as he fought, feeling his internal conflict through the bond. The light wolf wanted to protect. The shadow wolf, weakened but still present, whispered for blood. And both wolves were fragmenting. Without warning, Draven's form flickered. One moment he was human. The next, a massive wolf made of shadow. Then back again, the shifts coming faster and faster as he lost control. "Draven!" Ilyra screamed. He turned toward her voice. And Alaric's blade sliced across his ribs. The king went down hard, blood spreading across the marble floor. The shadow wolf shrieked. And suddenly, the room filled with darkness so complete that Ilyra couldn't see her own hands. When the shadows cleared, Draven was gone. In his place stood 2 wolves. One made of light, silver and white and glowing softly. One made of shadow, black as the void, eyes burning crimson. They circled each other, snarling, snapping, and tearing at each other's throats. The curse had finally split him in 2. "No," Ilyra whispered. "No, please." The shadow wolf lunged for the light. They collided in an explosion of power that shook the entire castle. And Ilyra understood. If the shadow wolf won, Draven would be lost forever. Consumed completely. The wicked king that prophecy always feared. If the light wolf won, it would destroy the shadow, and likely kill Draven in the process. You couldn't tear out half a soul without destroying the whole. Either way, she was losing him. Unless she did something. Now. The goddess's words echoed in her mind. Love him with everything you are. Hold nothing back. Ilyra didn't think. She ran forward, throwing herself between the 2 wolves just as they prepared to clash again. "Stop." Both wolves froze, their muzzles inches from her face. "You're both him," she said, her voice shaking. "Don't you understand? Light and shadow. Dawn and dusk. You're both Draven. And I love both of you." The shadow wolf's eyes flickered. The light wolf's ears went back. "The curse wants you to think you're separate. That one must destroy the other." Ilyra placed one hand on the shadow wolf's muzzle, one on the light. But you're not. You never were. You're just broken. Split apart by fear and magic and lies. She felt the mark on her shoulder blazing now, silver fire racing down her arms. Let me put you back together. And she pulled. Not with hands. With her soul. With the bond that tied her to both halves of him. She reached into that connection and yanked, trying to merge what had been torn asunder. The wolves howled. Power exploded through the council chamber, shattering windows, cracking walls. And slowly, agonizingly, the two wolves began to merge. Shadow and light twisting together. Not destroying each other. Becoming each other. When the light faded, only one wolf remained. Larger than before. Its fur rippled between silver and black, never settling on one color. Its eyes were gray, storm gray, with just a hint of crimson at the edges. Whole. The wolf looked at Ilyra. Then it shifted. And Draven knelt before her, gasping, shaking, alive. Ilyra, he breathed. What did you? Then he saw her face. Saw the silver blood trailing from her nose, her ears. Saw the way she swayed on her feet. No, he whispered, catching her as she fell. No, you weren't supposed to. The ritual isn't for 3 more days. Couldn't wait, she managed, her voice barely audible. You were tearing yourself apart. So you tore yourself apart instead? She smiled weakly. Seemed fair. Around them, the council chamber was in ruins. Alaric and his supporters had fled during the chaos. The remaining loyalists stared in shock at their king, whole for the first time in his life, cradling a dying Omega in his arms. Don't you dare, Draven said fiercely. Don't you dare leave me. We just found each other. The curse. She whispered. Is it? He checked himself. The shadows were still there, they always would be, part of his nature. But they were calm now. Under control. Merged with the light instead of fighting against it. You did it, he said, his voice breaking. You saved me. Good. Her eyes were closing. Ilyra, please. Not afraid, she murmured. Not of dying. Only of leaving you, alone in the dark. Then don't. He pressed his forehead to hers, tears streaming down his face. Stay with me. Fight. I'll find a way to save you. I'll make another bargain, find another ritual, I'll tear apart the gods themselves if I have to. Draven. I will find you, he vowed fiercely. Even if I have to follow you beyond death. Into whatever comes after. I will find you. Do you hear me? Her hand moved weakly to his cheek. Promise, she breathed. On my soul. On my crown. On everything I am. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, tasting salt and silver. I will find you. No matter how long it takes. No matter what I have to sacrifice. She smiled. And went still in his arms. Above Ravenspire, the blood moon pulsed. And the wicked king threw back his head and howled. She wasn't dead. Not quite. Ilyra floated in a place between, not darkness, not light, but something silvery and strange. She could hear Draven's howl echoing through the void, could feel his grief like physical pain through the bond that still, impossibly, connected them. You promised, she thought weakly. You promised to find me. Then wake up, came the goddess's voice. The battle isn't over, child. And he needs you. I gave everything. You gave what was required to merge his wolves. But the curse runs deeper than one man. It has infected the land itself. The blood moon feeds on it, spreads it. The goddess's presence wrapped around her like warm light. You must finish what you started. Together. I don't have anything left to give. Then take what I offer. Power flooded into Ilyra, ancient, vast, terrifying. The full force of the moon goddess's blessing, no longer filtered through mortal limits. It burned through her veins like liquid starlight, rewriting her from the inside out. This will change you, the goddess warned. You will no longer be fully Omega, nor fully mortal. Are you willing? Ilyra thought of Draven's smile. His gentle hands. The way he'd called her his even when the world demanded her death. Yes, she answered. Then rise, moon chosen. And save your king one final time. Ilyra's eyes opened. She was still in Draven's arms, in the ruins of the council chamber. But everything looked different, sharper, clearer, touched with silver light. She could see the threads of magic in the air, could feel the pulse of every living thing in the castle. And she could feel the curse. It wasn't gone. Merging Draven's wolves had contained it, pushed it back, but the root remained. And it was growing, feeding on the blood moon's power, spreading like poison through Ravenspire's foundations. "Draven," she whispered. His arms tightened convulsively around her. For a moment he didn't move, didn't breathe, as if afraid he'd imagined her voice. Then he pulled back to look at her. "Ilyra." His voice cracked. "How?" "The goddess," she managed. "She brought me back. But we don't have much time. The curse." An explosion rocked the castle. Screams erupted from outside. Draven was on his feet instantly, pulling Ilyra up with him. They rushed to the shattered windows and looked down at the courtyard. And froze. The sky had deepened from red to crimson black, the blood moon swollen to twice its normal size. And beneath it, soldiers were transforming. Alaric's forces, those who'd betrayed Draven, were convulsing, shadows erupting from their skin. Their eyes bled red. Claws tore through their fingertips. They were becoming something between wolf and man and nightmare. The curse was spreading, infecting anyone who'd given in to fear, to hatred, to the belief that some people were worth less than others. "No," Draven breathed. "No, this is the curse's final move," Ilyra finished. "It's trying to consume the entire kingdom. Turn everyone into what they feared you were." Below, the corrupted soldiers were attacking the loyalists. Blood stained the cobblestones. Fire spread through the lower wings. And through the bond, Ilyra felt Draven's wolf stirring. The merged wolf was stronger, more balanced than before. But it was still partly made of shadow. And shadow recognized shadow. The corruption called to him. "I have to stop them," Draven said, already moving toward the door. "Wait," Ilyra grabbed his arm. "If you go down there, if you're surrounded by that much cursed magic, it could infect you again. Tear you apart. Then I'll die protecting my people instead of becoming the monster that destroys them." He cupped her face, his storm-gray eyes fierce and tender. "You gave me a second chance at humanity. I won't waste it." He kissed her, desperately, thoroughly, like he was memorizing the taste of her. Then he shifted. The wolf of dusk and dawn burst forth, massive and terrible and beautiful, its fur rippling between silver and black. It leaped through the window, landing in the courtyard 4 stories below with enough force to crack the stones. And the corrupted soldiers turned toward it as one, recognizing their king. Ilyra watched in horror as they swarmed him. Draven fought like a force of nature. His merged wolf was faster, stronger than he'd ever been. Light and shadow worked together now, the light burning away corruption, the shadow understanding how to fight it. But there were too many. For every soldier he saved, pulling the curse out of them with careful precision, 3 more fell to the infection. And each time he touched the corrupted magic, it tried to sink hooks into him. "Come back," the curse whispered. "You were always meant to be ours. Shadow recognizes shadow. Monster knows monster." "I'm not," Draven snarled, tearing through another wave of attackers. "I'm not a monster." "Then why are you killing them?" He looked down. 3 soldiers lay at his feet. Not corrupted. Not enemies. Just men who'd gotten too close. Men he'd struck without thinking, his wolf's instincts taking over. His own people. The curse laughed in his mind. And the shadows inside him surged. "No," he growled. "No, I won't." But the blood moon pulsed. And the curse pulled. Draven felt himself fragmenting again. The careful balance Ilyra had achieved was crumbling under the onslaught of so much corrupted magic. Light and shadow were separating, tearing, fighting. A hand touched his muzzle. He whirled, fangs bared. And stopped. Ilyra stood before him, glowing with pale fire. But she looked different. Her eyes were no longer simple brown, they turned silver, flecked with gold and shadow. The mark on her shoulder blazed so bright he could see it through her clothes. Power radiated from her in waves. "You're not alone," she said quietly. Around them, the battle raged. Corrupted soldiers closing in. Fire spreading. The blood moon bleeding crimson light across everything. But in this moment, there was only her. I can't. Draven's mental voice was ragged. The curse, it's too strong, I'm losing. Then don't fight it alone. She stepped closer, pressing her forehead to his. You've carried this darkness by yourself for 20 years. Let me help you carry it. It will corrupt you. No. Her smile was fierce. I'm the moon chosen, remember? Blessed by the goddess herself. Shadow can't corrupt light. But light can transform shadow. She closed her eyes. And her power flooded into him. Not just her healing gift. The goddess's power. Ancient and vast and utterly uncompromising. It poured through the bond, into Draven's fractured soul, and it didn't purge the darkness. It embraced it. Light wrapped around shadow like a lover, like a missing piece finally found. And instead of fighting, instead of destroying, the two forces began to dance. Merging. Fusing. Becoming something entirely new. Draven's wolf exploded outward, growing larger, brighter. His fur shifted from rippling between colors to containing all colors, silver and black and gold and crimson and white, constantly changing, never settling. And beside him, Ilyra transformed. Her body dissolved into pure light, then reformed. When it solidified, she stood in her Omega form, but changed. Her hair fell in waves of silver white. Her eyes burned with divine fire. And when she shifted, a second wolf appeared. Smaller than Draven's, but no less powerful. Its fur was the color of moonlight on water, pale and ethereal and streaked with gold. Two wolves. Dusk and dawn. Shadow and light. King and Omega. Together. The corrupted soldiers froze, staring at the impossible sight. And Draven understood. If you cannot see the light, Ilyra's voice echoed in his mind, then take mine. Let me show you what we can become. As one, they threw back their heads and howled. The sound shattered the blood moon. Power exploded outward from the two wolves in a wave of silver-black light. It washed over the corrupted soldiers like a cleansing tide, burning away the curse's infection. One by one, they collapsed, gasping, human again. The shadows fled. The red leached from the sky. And the blood moon, that ancient terrible symbol of the curse, cracked. Fissures of white light spread across its crimson surface like lightning. The curse's power source, the dark god's foothold in the mortal realm, was shattering under the weight of unified light and shadow. In the courtyard, Draven and Ilyra stood side by side, their wolves merging and separating and merging again in a dance that rewrote reality itself. The curse screamed. It tried to flee, to find another host, but there was nowhere left to hide. Light and shadow working together left no cracks for it to slip through, no darkness deep enough to shelter it. You cannot destroy me, it shrieked. I am eternal. I am. Wrong, Draven's voice rang out, layered with Ilyra's. You are a lie. A corruption of what we were meant to be. And we reject you. Together, they pulled. The curse's roots, buried deep in Ravenspire's foundations, in the royal bloodline, in the very stones of the kingdom, tore free. The castle shook. The blood moon shattered completely. And the curse burned. It shrieked and writhed and fought, but against the combined power of a king who'd learned to embrace his darkness and an Omega who'd learned to weaponize her light, it didn't stand a chance. When the light finally faded, the curse was gone. Not weakened. Not contained. Gone. The sky was clear and bright, the moon restored to its normal silver glow. And in the courtyard, two wolves collapsed into human form. Draven came to slowly, every muscle aching. He was lying on cobblestones, covered in blood and ash and exhaustion. The sounds of battle had stopped. Around him, soldiers were picking themselves up, looking dazed and confused. Free. Did it work? He croaked. See for yourself. He turned his head. Ilyra sat beside him, equally battered, her silver-streaked hair matted with dirt. But her eyes, those impossible silver-gold shadow eyes, were warm and alive and smiling. Draven sat up carefully and looked at his hands. No shadows leaked from his skin. No claws extended from his fingertips. He reached for his wolf, that presence that had been his companion and his curse for 20 years. It was still there. Strong and whole and calm. One wolf now, not two. Light and shadow merged into something balanced and complete. His. Not the curse's. Not his father's legacy. Just his. It's gone, he whispered. The curse is actually gone. Not gone, Ilyra corrected gently. Transformed. The darkness is still part of you. But now it's balanced with light. They're working together instead of fighting. She held out her hand. He took it. And felt no pain. No burning. No fear that his touch would corrupt her. Just warmth. Connection. Love. Around them, the soldiers were realizing what had happened. The curse that had plagued Avelen for generations was broken. The wicked king was free. But when they looked for him, Draven was gone. 1 month later, the rumors spread quickly through Avelen. The wicked king had perished in the final battle, consumed by his own curse in one last act of sacrifice to save his kingdom. The Omega who tried to save him had died alongside him. The throne passed to a distant cousin, a fair, just ruler who immediately began reforming the kingdom's laws. First decree, abolishment of the class system. No more alphas, betas, omegas. Just people. One pack under the moon. Second decree, a monument in the castle courtyard. 2 wolves carved from white stone and black marble, forever entwined. The wolf of dusk and dawn. No one questioned why the monument looked so lifelike. No one noticed when the statues sometimes seemed to shift in the moonlight. And in the border territories, in the small villages still recovering from years of fear and oppression, 2 strangers appeared. A man with storm-gray eyes and gentle hands, who helped rebuild homes and never asked for payment. A woman with silver-streaked hair and a healer's touch, who taught children about balance and acceptance. They traveled together, never staying long, always moving toward the next place that needed help. Some claimed to see them shift into wolves under the full moon, one silver, one shadow, dancing together in the forest. Others said they were ghosts. Spirits of the fallen king and his Omega, forever bound by love and sacrifice. But the children knew better. They're the wolves of dusk and dawn, they whispered. Come to make sure we never forget. Forget what? The adults would ask. And the children would smile. That monsters are just people who've forgotten how to hope. And that sometimes, the ones everyone fears just need someone brave enough to love them anyway. In a small cottage at the edge of the kingdom, Draven pulled Ilyra close and kissed her forehead. Any regrets? He murmured. She looked up at him, this man who'd been called wicked and monster and curse, who'd learned to be gentle, who'd chosen love over power. Not one, she said. Outside, the moon rose silver and whole. And 2 wolves, one of dusk, one of dawn, ran together into the night. Free. The monster everyone feared was merely a king without light. And the girl they rejected became the spark that saved him. In the end, it wasn't destiny that broke the curse. It was choice. The choice to see past fear. To embrace both darkness and light. To understand that redemption doesn't come from destroying the shadow within, but from learning to dance with it. The wicked king died that day beneath the blood moon. But Draven, the man, the wolf, the soul beneath the curse, lived. And he lived free. With the woman who taught him that sometimes, the greatest power isn't in conquest or control. It's in surrender. In trust. In love that says, I see your darkness, and I'm not afraid. They say the wolves of dusk and dawn still run through Avelen's forests. Watching. Protecting. Ensuring that the old fears never take root again. And on nights when the moon is full and bright, if you listen very carefully, you can hear them singing. A song of shadow and light. Of curse and redemption. Of a king who learned to be human, and an Omega who taught him how. The kingdom was saved not by a hero's sword, but by a healer's heart. And the wicked king found his redemption in the last place anyone expected. In the arms of the girl everyone told him would destroy him.